One moment he was laughing in the back seat, the next, everything went silent. His small body lay still, his heartbeat gone. But his story didn't end there. Because while doctors fought to bring him back, he says he was already somewhere else, in a place more real than life itself, standing before Jesus. Before we dive into this unbelievable encounter, make sure you're subscribed and have the notification bell on so you don't miss powerful true life stories like this one that can strengthen your faith and give you hope. Now, let's go back to the moment everything changed. It was an ordinary Sunday afternoon. The Whitley family had just left church, the kind of day filled with laughter, warm sunshine, and the simple peace that comes after worship. 8-year-old Landon sat in the back seat, still humming along to a hymn they'd sung that morning, while his parents enjoyed the quiet drive home. But in the blink of an eye, that peace would shatter. Without warning, something tore through the calm, an unstoppable force racing toward them, and in seconds, nothing would ever be the same again. As they approached a quiet intersection, Landon's father suddenly shouted. But before Julie, his mother, could even register the warning, the world exploded into chaos. From the side, an ambulance, sirens wailing, lights flashing, tore through the crossing at full speed. In an instant, it plowed into their small Pontiac, twisting metal, shattering glass, and throwing the car like a rag doll. The impact was devastating. Landon's father was killed instantly. Julie's body was crushed, her world spinning in shock and pain. And somewhere beneath the wreckage was Landon, his small frame pinned, motionless, and silent. First responders struggled to even locate him. When they finally pulled him free, there was no breath, no heartbeat. Twice that day, once at the scene and again during the emergency helicopter flight, his heart stopped completely. By all medical reasoning, the story should have ended there. But as his lifeless body lay in the hands of doctors, Landon was about to open his eyes. In another world entirely. Landon would later say that in those moments when his heart had stopped, he wasn't floating in darkness or trapped in confusion. He was home. He remembers opening his eyes to a place so vibrant it almost hurt to look at. Streets that shimmered like pure gold, music so beautiful it seemed to flow through him, and light that wasn't just around him, it was inside him. There were people there too, faces filled with joy, some familiar, and some he had never met. And among them, standing with a smile he would never forget, was his father, the man he had just lost minutes earlier. But then Landon saw something that made his mother's knees go weak when she later heard about it. 2 children, laughing and playing nearby. Children Landon swore were his siblings. The only problem? Julie had never told him she had suffered 2 miscarriages before he was born. He couldn't have known, but somehow he did. Each time Landon's heart stopped, he says the vision grew clearer, the colors richer, the presence of heaven stronger. But on the 3rd time, something happened that would change him forever. From the light, a figure began to approach. Not just any figure, but the one he instantly knew. He says there was no mistaking him. It was Jesus. "You have to go back," Jesus told him gently, his eyes full of love yet filled with purpose. "Be a good Christian and tell others about me." It wasn't just a comforting vision, it was a calling. Landon knew, even in that moment, that what he had seen was not a dream, not imagination, but reality. Heaven was real. Jesus was real. And his life on earth now had a mission. Back on earth, Landon's body lay in a hospital bed, still, fragile, and connected to more tubes and machines than any mother should ever have to see. Doctors warned Julie that even if her son survived, the damage would likely be irreversible. He might never walk, talk, or even recognize her again. But Julie refused to let fear have the final word. Through her grief over losing her husband, she clung to hope with both hands, whispering prayers over Landon every chance she got. She admits there were moments of anger. She remembers sitting at the funeral, asking God why angels hadn't stepped in to protect them. But even in her questions, she didn't stop asking for one thing: her son's life. 2 weeks passed. 2 long, impossible weeks. And then, against every prediction, Landon opened his eyes. When Landon's eyes finally opened, Julie braced herself. She knew she'd have to tell him that his father hadn't survived the crash, a truth she feared would crush him. But before she could speak, Landon looked at her calmly and said, "I know, Mom. I saw him in heaven." And then, as if the walls between this world and the next had thinned, he began to share more. He told her about the angels, about the 2 siblings he'd met, about the light and the joy and the peace that felt more real than anything here. But most importantly, he told her exactly what Jesus had said, that he was to come back and tell others, Jesus is real, heaven is real, and we need to follow him. In that moment, Julie realized her son's life had been spared for something far greater than survival. Landon didn't return from heaven without scars. Multiple surgeries followed. Surgeons placed 23 metal plates in his head. He lost the vision in one eye. Part of his skull had to be used to rebuild his nose. But ask him today, and he'll tell you every scar is a reminder that his life is a gift. "I've been through a lot," he says, "but I know I'm here for a reason." From that day forward, Landon has shared his story whenever he can, not out of obligation, but out of love for the one he met. Every time he speaks, he points people to Jesus, reminding them that heaven is not a fairy tale, and that hope is never out of reach. For years, Julie wrestled with the same question over and over: where were the angels? But as time passed, she began to see the accident differently. The angels had been there, not in the way she expected, but guiding, protecting, and ensuring Landon's survival so his story could be told. She often points to the promise in Romans chapter 8, verse 28, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." Her grief didn't disappear, but it was transformed. Instead of living in anger and loss, she chose to live in purpose and faith, using her family's pain to point others toward Christ. And through every retelling of Landon's experience, that purpose becomes clear. God's plan is bigger than our pain, and his promises are real. Landon's story is more than just an emotional testimony. It's a reminder to all of us. Life is fragile. None of us knows the day or the hour when our time here will end. But for those who believe, there's hope beyond this life. Landon's message is simple, and it hasn't changed since the day he woke from that coma. Jesus is real. Heaven is real. And we need to live in a way that honors that truth. In Revelation 3:20, Jesus says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him." If you've been feeling far from God or unsure about where you stand, let this story be your reminder. He's closer than you think, and his love is still reaching for you right now. Despite tragedy, pain, and unimaginable loss, the Whitley family continues to live with hope and purpose. Landon's life is a miracle, but even more than that, it's a message to believe, a message to trust, a message to follow Jesus, no matter what. If this story touched your heart today, don't let it end here. Share it with someone who needs hope. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next powerful story we share. Thank you for watching, and remember, no matter what you're facing right now, God's not finished with your story yet.